how to create a Kubernetes or OpenShift service with Ansible. I'm going to show you a live demo and some simple Ansible code. I'm Luca Burton and welcome to today's episode of Ansible Pilot. Let's talk about Ansible module K8s. The full name is kubernetes.core.k8s, which means that it's part of a collection of modules of Ansible to interact with Kubernetes and Red Hat OpenShift cluster. It manages Kubernetes K8s objects. There is a long list of parameters for the K8s module. Let me summarize the most useful for our use case. The name and namespace specify object name and/or object namespace project. They are useful to create, delete, or discover an object without providing a full resource definition. The API version parameter specify the Kubernetes API version default v1. The state, like for other modules, determine if a job object should be created, present option, updated, patched option, or deleted, absent option. The definition parameter allow you to provide a YAML definition inline, string, list, or dictionary, but I still prefer to keep it separate and specify the source file as a src parameter, specifying the path of a file containing a valid YAML definition of an object. So every time I would like to update the Kubernetes part, I'm going to the YAML file. Every time I would like to update the Ansible, I'm keeping in my Ansible playbook. So demo time, I'm going to show you how to create a Kubernetes service with Ansible playbook. Specifically, we are going to create an nginx-service with one nginx pod. Are you ready? Let's get started. Wait a minute. Do you know what a Kubernetes service is? Well, according to the official documentation, is an abstract way to expose an application running on a set of pod as a network service. And the documentation is really good. They have a lot of examples and definitions, so I really recommend you to take a look and deep dive on this stuff. There is a lot of things also about virtual IP and a lot of more complex area. So definitely take a look and good job Kubernetes. Let's have fun! First of all, let's begin with our Kubernetes service YAML document. So as usual, API version v1, this kind is a pod. Yes, we always need a pod before a service. Metadata, let me add some name, nginx for example, and a label that is app.kubernetes.io/name. This is a proxy, for example, and let me specify the spec container. Exactly, we are going to use a container name nginx with an image that should be nginx, and let me specify also the tag. In my case 1.21.6 is the latest available. Ports, container ports, port 80, let's give the port a name, http-web/svc. Okay, now drum roll 3- and let's start the service area. API version v1, this time the kind must be service. Metadata, very similar to the previous one, name nginx-service. On the label, no, will be the same. Let's start with spec selector app.kubernetes.io/name proxy, same selector. What else? Oh, of course, ports. Let me specify one name, nginx service dash port. The protocol must be TCP and the port 80, because we would like to export port 80, target port of a POD. So we did given a name, so http-web-svc. So this is a standard Kubernetes service definition. You probably are already used to this. This is very simple, but you can customize with whatever you need it or you want it. Let's move on to the meaty part, the Ansible playbook. Oh, finally, our area. 3- and let's start a plain name K8s demo that is going to target hosts. Or I would like to execute on my current machine, so localhost, and I don't need the system information, so gather facts false. The connection must be local, so I need to specify. Oh, what else? Could be handful to specify a custom variable, in my case my project, that specify which project I would like to work on. In my case is name example, customize as you wish. One task named create K8s service. We are going to use kubernetes.core.k8s. Here we go. So first of all, source file myservice.yaml is the name of a file that we just typed a few seconds before. On the namespace my project, here we go, and the state must be present. And that's it from the Ansible side. Basically we are going to connect to the cluster, create the service and wait for it. Kubernetes is going to do all the heavy work, and we basically give them only the extraction or the recipe to bake this wonderful service. Let's move on to my laboratory. This is a demo OpenShift cluster. Let me connect with my kube admin user. And let's take a look together on the dashboard. As you can see, it's pretty recent release. Let me move on to the project area where I have my example project or namespace. And as you can see, it's completely empty. I have 0 pods and 0 services. If I click on service, it's clear, no service found. And what else usually you do? Well, manually you click on the button, create a service, and type here your YAML definition. No? Yeah. And it's already pre-built one very simple service. I really like this interface, but we want to move one step further using Ansible automation to provide this information. So now I'm going to cancel and move on to my terminal to automate everything. Welcome to my terminal. Here I'm able to connect to my Kubernetes cluster. In this case I use OpenShift code ready container on my local machine. As you can see here, I have also my username and password. So let me initialize the OC command for this terminal. Now I'm able to execute OC. Is the same as a kube control. So OC project example. I'm going to enter in the namespace example, and now I'm able to list the current service. So OC get SVC, and is no result. What about pod? OC get POD, no resources available. Okay, now let's the fun begin. Ansible playbook service.yml. The execution will be incredibly fast. Basically, Ansible is only sharing the recipe with Kubernetes, and Kubernetes is taking care of all the needs. As you can see, there is one change status, which means some operations were performed. If you execute again, we got OK status, which means everything was already in place. Now, if you get the service, you see that there is nginx-service as expected 23 seconds ago. And also on the pod list, there is nginx. So everything is in the right place and everything is coordinated by Ansible. Now I could also customize the project and reuse this code as many times as I need it. Are you curious about a web UI? Let's move on. Welcome back to the web interface of my OpenShift cluster. This time I'm expecting different result when I'm going to connect to my projects. So back on projects example or namespace, and this time if I scroll it down in the inventory, I see one pod and one service. If I'm connecting to the service, I have nginx-service as expected, and everything is set it up, especially the POD and the port. Everything, service port, everything is in order. Port 80 TCP connect to the right port of the POD. The POD is running, and let me take a look on the YAML definition. Is exactly what we expected. You see some similarity from the one that we typed together in the editor. So good job, Ansible, you automate my job, and now I have more free time to do everything that I wanted. Now you know how to create a Kubernetes or OpenShift service with Ansible. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this lesson, keep in touch. We are going to have a lot of more fun, and we are going to automate more and more tasks in your system administrator journey. So keep in touch and have a great day. This video is part of our Ansible automation program. Sign up today on www.ansiblepilot.com for uninterrupted exclusive video and so much fun.